What if I told you that a single social media post just ended a man's political career? What if I told you that one endorsement shook the most powerful Republican in the United States Senate to his absolute core? What if I told you that something happened this week that the entire Washington establishment has been dreading for 4 years, and it is now officially, irreversibly, undeniably here? Washington, D.C. will never be the same. President Trump just dropped what political analysts are already calling the most consequential primary endorsement in modern American political history. And the shockwaves are not metaphorical. They are real, they are measurable, and they are hitting the halls of power right now as you watch this. If you believe the era of the Republican establishment is finally over, smash that like button, because what you are about to see is the proof. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is now reportedly on notice. A sitting senator's career just got vaporized. And the numbers, the cold, hard, undeniable numbers, confirm that this is not spin. This is not wishful thinking.
This is the moment everything changed. But to understand why this single endorsement just put a Senate Majority Leader on death watch, you need to see exactly what Trump said. Because it was not just an endorsement, it was a declaration of war. The target was the Texas Republican Senate race. And Trump did not just pick a side, he published what may be the longest, most detailed, most deliberately constructed endorsement statement of his entire political career. He called Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton a true MAGA warrior, an America First patriot, someone who has always been, in his own words, extremely loyal to the movement. And he declared, with zero ambiguity, that Paxton has his complete and total endorsement to become the next United States Senator from the great state of Texas. But here is what made this endorsement a nuclear weapon instead of just a political thumbs up. Trump did not stop at personality. He did not stop at loyalty. He got surgical. He named names. He cited failures. He put specific policy betrayals on the record for the entire country to see.
The Save America Act. Trump's #1 legislative priority. A bill that would mandate proof of citizenship to vote. A bill polling at 87% approval, including among Democrats. And the Senate establishment could not deliver it. Would not deliver it.
The filibuster. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has repeatedly refused to eliminate it to push Trump's agenda through. Meeting after meeting, excuse after excuse, nothing. Make no mistake about what Trump just did. He did not endorse Ken Paxton because he simply likes Ken Paxton. He endorsed Ken Paxton because John Cornyn and the GOP establishment failed to deliver on the most basic, foundational items of the agenda that the American people voted for in 2024. This endorsement was retribution. Cold, calculated, and perfectly timed retribution. And Paxton had already played his part perfectly months earlier, offering to drop out of the race entirely if Cornyn would agree to nuke the filibuster and pass the Save America Act. Cornyn eventually flipped. He said he would support it, but his fellow establishment Republicans refused. The deal collapsed. So Trump did what Trump does. He made them pay. But that is not even the most shocking part. Because the moment that post hit Truth Social, something happened in the political prediction markets that nobody, not before Trump's post, Ken Paxton was sitting at roughly 48% odds on the political prediction markets. Competitive, respectable, but not dominant. Within hours of that Truth Social post going live, within hours, everything changed. Paxton did not just gain ground. He did not just surge. He shot up to nearly 100%. And John Cornyn, one of the most powerful, most entrenched, most institutionally protected incumbent senators in the entire country, collapsed to single digits. Let that sink in for a moment.
A sitting senior senator, backed by the full machinery of the Republican establishment, funded by millions of dollars in institutional money, connected to every major donor network, every power broker, every insider in Washington. Single digits, one endorsement, one post, done. And Cornyn himself clearly knows it. He has suspended his campaign. He has cancelled every campaign event. The man who said on camera in 2023 that Trump was essentially irrelevant and could not win in November is now watching his entire political career disintegrate in real time. He joins a growing list. Tom Tillis, Bill Cassidy, the Liz Cheneys and the Mitt Romneys, all of them now on the ash heap of history. All of them chose the establishment over the people. All of them paid the price. But the markets were not even the most important reaction to what just happened. Because somewhere inside Washington, a very powerful man was watching all of this unfold. And he was not okay. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, the man who controls the entire Republican Senate machine, looked visibly shaken after hearing the news. Not annoyed, not disappointed, not mildly inconvenienced, visibly shaken. Reports coming in describe him as severely upset. He was caught completely off guard. The man who runs the United States Senate, the man whose entire job is to know what is coming before it arrives, had absolutely no idea this endorsement was coming.
And when he was forced to face reporters, forced to stand there in front of the cameras and answer questions about what just happened to his party, you could hear it. The barely concealed rage. The stunned disbelief barely held together behind careful words. Because Thune had done everything right by establishment rules. The National Republican Senatorial Committee, the very institutional machine that Thune controls, had poured millions of dollars into Cornyn's campaign. Millions. Deployed specifically to protect one of their own in a Republican primary against a MAGA challenger. And it meant nothing. In one post, Trump made all of that money, all of that infrastructure, all of that carefully built establishment political muscle completely and utterly irrelevant. But here is where the story takes a dramatic turn. This is not just about the Cornyn race. This is not just about Texas. Thune himself is up for re-election in 2028. In South Dakota, a state Trump carried by a landslide, Trump just sent him a message in the clearest possible terms. Get the Senate in line with the agenda, or you are next. Thune keeps saying he does not have the votes, over and over and over again. And the response coming back from Mar-a-Lago is simple, direct, and brutal. Find different votes. Change the rules. Stop making excuses. Stop protecting the people who lost. Stop being a gatekeeper for a party that no longer exists. The walls are closing in on the old Republican establishment. And just when it seemed like they could not get more desperate, they did something that reveals exactly how dangerous and reckless cornered elites can truly be.
When you cannot win, you destroy. That is the playbook. That has always been the playbook of the Republican establishment, going back decades. Either win on your own terms or burn everything down so the movement that beat you cannot win either. Just weeks after being acquitted in his second impeachment trial, a sham proceeding that his enemies in the media celebrated like a victory parade, every pundit, every power broker, every establishment voice in Washington was absolutely certain of one thing. And right on schedule, a claim started circulating. A dangerous, cynical, deliberately manufactured claim designed to do one thing and one thing only: damage Ken Paxton before he ever reaches the general election. The story being pushed that by endorsing Paxton, Trump has put the Texas Senate seat at risk, that the Democratic challenger, a far-left progressive, now actually has a real shot at winning Texas. Cornyn's own campaign, he basically admitted it. His surrogates are now doing everything in their power to politically wound the man who just defeated them. Not because they think it will work, but because this is what they do. This is the Karl Rove wing of the Republican Party, born in Texas, built on scorched earth, and when they lose, they make sure everyone loses with them. It is not going to work. Here is why. Since 2012, 91% of all Senate races have been won by whichever party carried that state in the most recent presidential election. Trump carried Texas by 14 points in 2024. Texas Republicans have won every single statewide race for 30 consecutive years. The last time a Democrat won a statewide race in Texas was 1994. The smear is dead. The math kills it instantly. But forget the desperate last moves of a political class that just lost everything. Because what Trump actually did with this endorsement goes so much deeper than one Senate race in Texas. This was the final act of a plan he announced 4 years ago, and almost nobody saw it coming. February of 2021, just 1 month after leaving the White House, just weeks after being acquitted in his second impeachment trial, a sham proceeding that his enemies in the media celebrated like a victory parade, every pundit, every power broker, Every establishment voice in Washington was absolutely certain of one thing.
The Trump era was finished, and then he walked out onto that stage in Orlando. The crowd was electric, defiant, but also uncertain, because there were two questions burning through that room that nobody could answer with confidence. Was Trump going to run again? And if so, was he going to start a third party? Because after everything that had happened, after the establishment turned on him, after Mitch McConnell stood on the Senate floor and delivered his infamous speech blaming Trump for the Capitol riot, the logical move seemed obvious. Take the tens of millions of loyal supporters. Take the movement. Walk away from the Republican Party and build something entirely new. But Trump said no. He looked out at that crowd and he made a declaration that almost nobody in the mainstream media took seriously at the time. We have the Republican Party. We do not need to build another one. We are not going to divide our vote so that we never win again. We are going to have a full and complete takeover of the Republican Party. Not a reform, not a negotiation, not a seat at the table, a takeover. In that single moment, Trump made a choice that would define the next 4 years of American political history. Not to flee, not to found, but to conquer. And what was about to unfold would become the most dramatic hostile takeover of a major American political party in living memory. But here is what people still do not fully understand about Donald Trump, and what explains why nobody in Washington has ever been able to stop him.
In every meaningful sense, Donald Trump was always a third-party candidate who won a major party nomination. Think about what he actually was in 2016. No party infrastructure, no donor network, no establishment blessing, no permission from the gatekeepers who had decided, for decades, who gets to run, who gets to win, and who gets to govern.
He was running against 16 other candidates and the entire Republican Party apparatus simultaneously. The GOP Beltway machine spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to stop him. The Never Trump movement, the Access Hollywood tape, deployed like a precision weapon at the most damaging possible moment. The Republican establishment literally changing convention rules mid-process to try to deny him the nomination outright. He was running against all of it, all at once, because he did not represent the Republican Party as the establishment had built it and maintained it and profited from it for 30 years. He represented the people that party had abandoned, the working-class voters, the forgotten communities, the Americans who watched their factories close, their wages stagnate, their voices get ignored, while the donor class got richer and the consultant class got more comfortable and the establishment kept telling them to wait their turn. They did not vote for the Republican Party in 2016. They voted for Trump, and then came 2020. And when Trump lost, every establishment Republican made the same catastrophic miscalculation. They thought the movement would fade without the man. They thought wrong. What happened next changed everything. 2024 was not just an election victory. It was not a comeback story. It was not a redemption arc. It was not a second chance. It was the return of the king.
It was the final, undeniable, mathematically irrefutable proof that the MAGA movement is not a faction within the Republican Party. It is the Republican Party. And the numbers do not whisper that conclusion. They scream it. Donald Trump won 312 electoral votes. He won the national popular vote, the first Republican to do so since 2004. 20 years. The establishment could not do it in 20 years. Trump did it while they were still telling him he was unelectable. In Texas alone, he won with 6.4 million votes, the most ever cast for any single candidate in the entire history of that state. And when he walked back into power in January of 2025, he did not walk back in as a guest in the Republican establishment's house. He walked back in as the owner. He came back to finish exactly what he announced at CPAC in February of 2021. The total, permanent, irreversible transformation of the Republican Party, from an establishment-run, donor-class-protected, consultant-enriching political vehicle into a working-class, America-first, populist national movement. And that transformation is now playing out in real time, primary after primary, state after state. One establishment career after another hitting the ground. Bill Cassidy got 25% of the vote in Louisiana's Republican primary. What analysts called arguably the worst primary performance by a sitting senator since the end of World War II. Tom Massey obliterated in Kentucky. Marjorie Taylor Greene did not even wait to get beaten. She rage quit. She ran. And now John Cornyn, one of the most powerful incumbent senators in America, is watching his career disintegrate in real time because he chose the establishment over the people one too many times.
This is not chaos. This is not retribution for its own sake. This is not a purge without purpose. This is the logical, inevitable, unstoppable conclusion of a project that was announced out loud on a public stage in front of the entire world in February of 2021. The total takeover of the Republican Party. The donors failed. The consultants failed. The think tanks failed. The Senate leadership failed. The Never Trump movement failed. All of it failed because you cannot hold back a movement that represents what this one represents. Not with money, not with rules, not with smear campaigns, not with coordinated institutional pressure. The working class has taken its party back, and the old Republican Party, it is already gone.